I would first like to thank you for taking the time to join John, Mattock, and myself as we delve into the concept of virtual teamwork. To begin with, I'd like to spend a little bit of time with John Mattock and understand who he is. Now, John and I, by the way, are hosting an open session. That means we'll be taking questions throughout the presentation. And if you have a question, please enter it into the chat or question box, and I will attempt to interrupt John at the appropriate moments and pose your question to him. Now, John is an author, a trainer, and a coach for interpersonal communication skills. And if you're in sales or service, this is a primary skill requirement. John has been perfecting his abilities for over 20 years and written several books on communication skills. John, what are the titles of the books you've written?
Oh my gosh! In English,
yes.
Powerful presentations, how to be a better negotiator, Russia, the essential guide for the business traveler. Russian is one of my languages. The new international manager, the cross-cultural management pocketbook.
Okay, I think
and that's the general idea. You know, I'm a global bullshitter. That's what I am.
A prolific writer. John, could you do me a small favor, and everyone attending, and let us know, first off, how did you get into this business of interpersonal training?
Okay. It started way back in the 1970s. It would be interesting at some stage to get an idea of the age of Michael and Mukul, but back there in the 70s, one of the big stories in international business, global business as we would call it now, was very simply the language. And in my middle 20s, I was an English teacher. But the people to whom I was teaching English in London and in Milano and in Tokyo were, well, we said business people, but they were middle to senior band executives in the big corporations. So I would find myself teaching English for business purposes to guys from human resources or from finance or from sales and marketing. Very quickly, by about 1979, 1980, these same people were saying, well, that's okay, my English is now good enough. What I really want now is some help with how I present myself, how I behave. So we switched our attention, my colleagues and I, to presentation technique, negotiation skills, teamwork, leadership, all the soft skills. And we had a wonderful, wonderful 5 to 10 years in the 1980s, traveling all over the world, delivering just that package of ideas in English to lovely people in the big corporations. And it was also rather nice for us, of course, because when you're an international management coach, your fees are rather higher than when you're just a humble English teacher. So since about 1981, 1982, my business card has said communications coaching. We have, and it works, isn't that lovely? That's me there outlined in red. That in green is my partner Susanna, who travels a great deal also. She's in the same game. And that cloud of people in gray, that's our kind of team of associates. They're on my website, I'm on their websites. There's about 6 nationalities there, all kinds of backgrounds, and when they're working with me, they fly my flag, which is right brain training.
Now, John, I mean, you've been doing a number of things for a number of years. When did virtual teamwork become a part or an important part of your portfolio?
I think almost as soon as I heard the expression, I said, yeah, that's for me, particularly because I've got some friends who are a bit smarter than me in the digital environment. But I guess the very first time anybody really asked me to do a job in virtual teamwork was about 10 years ago. Very often the clients I already have, be they based in Europe or in the States or in the Far East, are naturally international clients, and as they started incorporating the new technologies into their means of communicating, they naturally discovered that things weren't going quite as smoothly as they hoped. Over the last 2 or 3 years, here's a little snapshot of some of the companies that I've been working with. And just to give you an idea, I mean, clearly you can see telecoms companies there, you can see a bank, there's a big insurance company, there's a couple of software development companies, which of course is a very big story in virtual teamwork. And these are the kind of clusters of countries or of cities that were involved. I've been helping people establish virtual teams between Hampton Court, which if you don't know is part of London, and Nottingham up there in the industrial Midlands, and Bangalore. Or down in the bottom right-hand corner there's a company that was developing software based in Finland and also in the heart of Sweden, and they were reaching out to Romania to find a set of skills at affordable prices to bring them into the team. And I've had a lot of fun with these people. These are the kind of things that we were working with. Maybe this is a bit simpler if I take all those horrible words away. Look, I was hearing stories that their strategies were being distorted as they tried to communicate them over distance and over time zones and over cultural barriers. I heard that projects were moving too slowly. I don't know, Edward, did you ever hear of a project that was moving too fast?
Hardly.
But certainly, you know, it was the old story about the first half of the project takes 80% of the time and the second half of the project takes 80% of the time. And people were suffering unnecessary stress. People were getting frustrated at the, you know, I mean, right at the beginning of this webinar, you were experiencing a certain frustration with the technology. All we're doing here is trying to share ideas, but imagine if there was $1 million on the table. Email disease. You and I were talking a little earlier about the difficulties with email. I think, you know, 15 years ago, everybody thought it was from the land of dreams. It was just what we needed. But everybody now has some horror stories about how emails can create the wrong impression. And I won't go on too much about that. People have been talking about lost in a tangle of job descriptions, of policies, of strategies, of goals, of targets, of working routines, of expectations. And it was like wading through mud, one of my clients said to me once. He said, you know, I wish I was back in the days of propeller-driven aeroplanes and steam telephones. Life was so much simpler. And also, frequently, I was saying to people, look, there are ways of helping you, but we need to invest at this early stage. These problems that you're having are going to cost us not huge amounts, but a few $1,000s, a few €1,000 to fix this problem. And then they would say, but we never set aside a budget for this. We thought it was going to go so smoothly.
Yeah, money's always...
those are the questions, yeah.
Money is always a challenge. I mean, in the business world, you either don't have enough money or you have too much money. You have to spend it all because you're not going to get the budget next year if you don't, or you just don't have what you need to do, the work you need to do. Now, if you're going to have someone invest in getting the virtual team up and running, what's the ROI? How does the manager in the organization actually sell the concept to the boss, saying, look, before we go down this road, we need to first take a deep breath and make an investment?
Well, let me show you a little picture of the way the senior management might like to think it's going to work. You know, they have a perception frequently that, you know, they got these hard-working guys there in their offices and in their call centers all lined up with the technology, giving themselves burnout. But that's right, that's great, because senior management likes to think people are burning themselves out. You know, there's a little bit of sadomasochism in all of this. And then, of course, you know, smart people come along and say, look, with my beautiful piece of software, with all of these